So a few days ago, I posted my video with unboxing my Sennelier 98 color set. And of course, I wanted to swatch them ever since I got them and opened the box. And I looked on YouTube and I saw a lot of ways to swatch this set, and some people arrange them in their own chromatic preferences. Some people just follow the chart offered by Sennelier. What I decided to do after watching way too many swatching videos for this color set is to arrange them by single pigment, same hue pigment mix, two different pigments, and then you'll see there are different combination of pigments that are mixed with white, with black, or with brown. Just because I've seen people say, oh, there's a lot of mixing colors, like, you know, tubes with 2 or 3 pigments listed on, but to me, once I broke it down, I realized it's really not that bad. You don't get a lot of duplicate colors or hues or something that's close together, but of course I guess I'll have to swatch and see. And the single pigments, I believe it's 57. I created this charts like this, and you'll see more as I zoom in, and my paints are still wet. And here I put all of them, and for the single pigment I put the pigment number, so that's coming up. I'm gonna try to film this. We'll see how it goes. Yes, I didn't buy a palette that would hold all of them or pour them in pans, since I'm thinking I'm gonna just use them from tube. I like fresh paint. So without further ado, here are 6 of the paints that are created by mixing pigments from the same same hue. Like this Indian yellow, it's 2 yellow pigments, and I think I put a little bit too much paint from the tube. So what I did, I wrote the name of the color, and in hindsight I probably should have put the pigment name or the number code. And yes, here they are: Indian yellow, Sennelier yellow deep, and I have the tubes next to me, but yeah, that would take way too long if I tell you everything that's in it. But of course, just as the title of this chart says, same hue pigment mix. So for Indian yellow is 2 yellow pigments, for Sennelier yellow deep 2 yellow pigments, 2 or 3, I'm not sure. But yeah, here you can see in the camera I might not be able to pick up the differences. I know Sennelier offers a wide range of yellows and reds, but at least this swatch I can see which ones are transparent, semi-transparent, and opaque. The Alizarin Crimson Lake, I think it's made with mixing 3 red pigments, and it is a lovely red. I love these colors. I own about 10 tubes of Sennelier. I bought them right at the beginning when I started looking into watercolors. I think I was actually on a trip to California, and I stopped one of their oblique stores, and they had a sale for Sennelier. And back then I didn't know how to pick up colors or what colors would work best, so yeah, I didn't get the best selection, but I know I wanted to try all of them. And this Viridian, I know in certain brands comes as a single pigment, and it has the issue of being difficult to re-wet. Sennelier mixes, it's a two green pigments that are mixed together. And I don't know if they do that for tinting strength or for ease of re-wettability. But yeah, it's a basic green. I'm not a huge green fan, so I couldn't tell you much about this. But if you like green, this is your basic green. This is a light yellow ochre. It's a mix of 3 yellow pigments. Very pretty. Like most yellow ochre, this one looks to be slightly opaque, but this is quite concentrated. And with the Sennelier colors, I notice as they dry, especially on this dark line, the pigments, even if they're bright at first, they tend to become less and less visible. So I use a Sharpie marker to draw this line, and I think mine was a pretty fresh one. I can still smell the fumes. So if you have any other suggestion on how you create a dark line to test your color transparency or opacity, let me know. So this is a gold ochre, another blend of yellow colors. Looks really nice actually. Less yellow than the light yellow ochre, more like a raw sienna. But this art of 6 colors in the Sennelier range that are a mix of 2 pigments that have the same hue. They're from the same hue family, means yellow or red or green. So I'm gonna squeeze some paint for my two or plus pigment hues, and we'll continue swatching. And I have a new row of the beautiful Sennelier colors. In this set there are several, I think maybe 18 of colors that contain pigments from different families, hues, like I like to call them, either a yellow or red, like with these oranges, and even the Perylene brown. I think they have some yellow pigment in their mix. Then the Cobalt Violet has a Pikmin Violet and a Pikmin Red, and the French Ultramarine has the PB29 and a violet pigment mixed in. So with this color combination, I want to say the most important thing to remember is which one is the dominant pigment. For example, this orange, is it gonna behave more like a true orange, or is it gonna behave more like a yellow, depending which pigment is dominant in the mix. And a way to determine that is to mix it with its complementary. For example, I'll try to mix this cadmium yellow orange with a blue color, see if I get a nice green, or if it's gonna neutralize to like a gray or a brown, and then I'll know, yes, it says it's orange, the name is true, even if the pigment that's mixed with says yellow and orange, the orange one would be dominating. I hope it makes sense. It's kind of hard to explain, but yeah, these are the color. This is a Perylene brown. It's very interesting. I know it's not a true Perylene color. I forgot the actual called. Oh, excuse me, I have a brain pause there. The actual code for that, I think I have it, or I wanted to buy it from Daniel Smith, but Naphthalene Maroon kind of got my attention. So yeah, this is Perylene brown. I think it's made with a yellow and a red pigment. It's nice. I wouldn't know what I would use it for. And then Alizarin crimson. We'll see how it dries off. It definitely reminds me more of maroon than a true Alizarin crimson. And this Cobalt Violet deep, it has the Pikmin Violet 16 and Pikmin Red 122, which Sennelier offers it as a single pigment, and it's one of my favorite. It's called the Helios Purple. And it doesn't, to me, it doesn't look like a Cobalt Violet, or at least not the Winsor & Newton Cobalt Violet I currently have and love. it's more like the permanent mauve from Winsor & Newton, and I can get my swatches out once these are dry, and we can look at some comparisons, some substitutes. If you think like, yes, this Sennelier set is really nice, but I don't think I would ever have the courage to spend that much money on it, I can tell you some colors that you might already have in your collection that you can put together and have something similar. So I'll let this dry and put some more colors on the next row, and I'll see you in a little bit. And next on this list of these two pigments or more, and this being pigments from different hues, in this row I have mostly pigment blue and green, or pigment green or blue and yellow. So lots of greens, lots of turquoise. And I know Phthalo Turquoise, certain brands offered one pigment. I think it's like a PB16 maybe. I have to pull up my swatches. I have one from Schminke, I want to say. But I know that Daniel Smith has a really pretty Phthalo Turquoise. That is also a two pigment mix. I want to say it's not the same mix as Sennelier's, but we'll pull up some swatches and compare. This is a Phthalo Green Deep. Again, I think it's a pigment blue and a pigment green, and to me it just looks like a standard PG7. So I don't know why they thought it necessary to add another pigment. And most of these seem transparent. Of course, this one they have a cadmium in their name. I want to say the yellow they use might be a cadmium yellow, like this cadmium green light. And I should have put more paint down to be able to tell, but yeah, this should be okay. I like to mix my own greens with blue and yellow. I notice it gives my painting a more cohesive look. If I use yellow or blue in my painting, then I can, and I use a green that I mix myself, it looks a little better. It looks like it belongs there. This Ochre green, I know there's a big story, or the whole story about it. I'm not that familiar with this color history or how it's supposed to look, but yeah, it seems a little opaque. And then this Sap Green, and I know this from oh god, her name is escaping me right now, but I bought her palette that she made with Da Vinci, and she is a big fan of Sap Green. And I'll have to compare that with Da Vinci. Denise, oh, here it is. Denise Soden. I'll compare this Sap Green with the one I got in the palette from Da Vinci, and I'll tell you which one I like best. But yeah, it looks very natural, and I know for sure this Sap Green from Sennelier, it's like a PB29 and yellow, so it doesn't have a green pigment in it. And of course the Phthalo Green Light, I think this is one of the colors I bought, and I want to say I bought it when I was trying to create Otto Cano's primary color. I was following her YouTube video, but yeah, here they are, my blue and greens. And I have two more colors, and then I have four colors that have one or two pigments that are mixed with white. So that's gonna complete this page, and I'll come back with some comparisons. And this is my last row for this page, and I have for you a bright yellow green, which is a mixture of some sort of green and yellow. I want to say it's PY3. It's super neon-y. I wonder how light fast it is. I know PY3, the one I have from Daniel Smith, I want to say it says that it's light fast, but I had a painting that I made with, and although it is not in direct sun, every once in a while the sun gets to it, and I noticed just a slight discoloration. It's still bright yellow, but it's not as intense as I remember. So yeah, some of these paints I probably should do live tests. And this is a beautiful Queen Gold, very similar to Daniel Smith and to Core. And as soon as it dries, I'm gonna compare it with the swatches I have from those two brands. We'll see how it dries. I think Otto had a really nice, this is a cat hair for my cats, had a really nice video when she had the Colossal Color Showdown, where she presented all the Quinacridone Gold, and she had discontinuance. And mine picked up this marker that I use here for the border, but I'll try not to touch it too much. But there, looks like a nice Queen Gold. And these are the four pigments that contain, the four paints that contain one or two pigments and white. And I think some of them contain the more transparent white and some of the more opaque. So this is the Naples Yellow, which I already have. And yeah, I thought it was similar to Daniel Smith, but there's just a slight difference, and I'll show you when it dries. And I think I have another, something in there. Oh, never mind. Cobalt Violet light hue, so similar to the Cobalt Violet deep from earlier. I want to say they have the same color mixture, and this one has a little bit of white in it, but you can barely tell there is white. And I think the PV16 is already an opaque granulating color, and the brightness, it's mostly due to the PR122, which it's used in this mix. And I touched the Naples Yellow there a little bit, but that's okay. Yeah, I mean, it's a nice violet-y color. Again, I think I saw this one also in Otto's Colossal Color Showdown. She has a very good video where she compares all the cobalt colors. So I erased most of mine, but it gives me an idea of how the color behaves, and I should be fine. I like to look at violet colors, but in paintings, I don't know, I don't tend to use them as much. I try to steer more towards bright primary colors than the violets. This is the Cenarius Blue. It reminds me of manganese blue hue from Daniel Smith. I'm gonna get my swatches and try to compare that. Of course, this is I want to say PB 15:3 and white, and this is royal blue. I put a lot of paint in here, but also another phthalo blue mixed with white, and this is more opaque, but then again I did have a lot of color. It's probably similar to one of those lavender or wisteria. I don't have any of those from Daniel Smith, but just from seeing swatches on YouTube, that's kind of what it looks like. And I might come back and touch up this Cobalt Violet once it's dry, but I'll leave it here to dry, and then I'll come back to look at some swatches. And the paints are almost dry, and I have a few things I would like to mention, few things to compare. Of course, this Crimson Lake, it's very nice and bright. I can see a few specks on my black line there. I don't know if the camera can pick up, but I can conclude it's pretty transparent. Sennelier Yellow Deep, maybe semi-opaque or semi-transparent, I cannot tell the difference between those two classification, but yeah, you can still see the black line, but definitely a lot of deposit. And the yellow, light yellow ochre and gold ochre, again you can see a lot of deposit there. And just to compare with the colors from other brands, I have here a PY43, which is single pigment Yellow Ochre from Daniel Smith, and it's very close with these two. Gold Ochre and Yellow Ochre, maybe slightly more yellow, but for the Gold Ochre and this Daniel Smith Yellow Ochre, I would say they're almost the same. And I wish I would have drawn a dark line to check transparency when I made the swatches, but I forgot. So now I have to deal with that. I'm not sure if I'm going to redo them and make them on the back or what. But anyway, let's move on. I have here these two oranges, Cat Yellow Orange and Red Orange. They're also semi-transparent or semi-opaque. The Red Orange may be a little more transparent than the Cadmium Yellow Orange, but of course Cadmium Yellows, they tend to be more opaque. And then the Perylene Brown and the Alizarin Crimson, they're two reds I hardly ever use in my paintings, because usually I just prefer a bright red like the Crimson Lake, and then I probably desaturate it with some brown or a little bit of green. But I have these other swatches, the Perylene Maroon from Da Vinci, which is very close to this Alizarin Crimson. I would say the maroon is probably a little more brown. I also have the Alizarin Crimson Quinacridone from Da Vinci, and this I would say it's very, very close to the Perylene Brown from Sennelier. It's almost identical with the Perylene Brown. And this is a BV19, so it's a single pigment. Yeah, and definitely this is more orange. And the Alizarin Crimson from Sennelier has a yellow pigment in the mix. And I also have the permanent Alizarin Crimson, which is a PR77. That's also similar to this Perylene Brown. And maybe not as warm as the Alizarin Crimson, but with a little bit of yellow, you could get that shade if it's something you're interested in. And then the Cobalt Violet, and here at the bottom I have the Cobalt Violet light hue, which is very similar. I think they added a little bit more of white, and then the proportion of the PR122 and the PV16 are a little bit different. And I have here from Winsor & Newton PV16 and PV14 in their pure form, and you can tell the Cobalt Violet dip, it's very close, maybe slightly lighter. It's somewhere in between these two colors. But what I like about Sennelier is you get this solid color, even if it has the granulation from the PV16, because of the PR22 you also get like a nice coverage with this. Super granulating colors, I feel like I need to use something else underneath because I don't like the white of the paper showing through. So for me in this case I prefer Sennelier because they kind of did that work for me. And then the Cobalt Violet hue, you can barely tell there's white in it. Of course on the line, on the dark line, you can see a little bit of that kind of like chalky, powdery. But then this Pikmin Violet, they also create that sediment. And the hue, I would say it's closer to a magenta or a Queen Violet. Like I have this Queen Violet from Queen Magenta from Core and this Queen Violet from Schminke. So to me it's kind of like, and the camera makes this a little more bluer, but this would be something that would be in between. So if you mix a Queen Violet and a magenta in equal proportion, you might get something like that. Of course this one has slight granulation from that PV16 mixed in it. Phthalo Turquoise, I forgot to get that swatch out, but I got the Phthalo Green here, and compared to this Phthalo Green deep, this is more greener. I feel like the Phthalo Green deep is slightly bluer, which I'm not surprised. It has a green pigment and a blue pigment mixed together. And this Cadmium Green Light dried up to the most perfect mint green hue, and it's quite transparent, although it didn't seem like that at first. I liked it. Hooker's Green, well, since I'm not a big green fan, I don't know what to think of it, but it looks like something that you could be very useful to florals. And then last but not least, on this green class, the Sap Green from Sennelier versus Coors and Denise's Green from Da Vinci. Yeah, very similar. You have to be really particular to pick between them. With Denise, I like that she used the PB60 and PY129, especially PB60 being one of my favorite pigments. I like how it's a little bit maybe more desaturated than Sennelier's and more natural. And then the Course it's a 3-pigment mix, yellow, red, and green, and it has a very interesting texture. And in the mass tone, like towards the edges where I didn't dilute the paint enough, it created a little bit of a shine. And with the Sennelier being oh, I think I smudged that one, that's fine. You can see a little bit of the PB29 separating right here, so that could be an interesting green to use. This bright yellow green, definitely neon-y, very neon, almost like a highlighter. Yeah, probably for like leaves that are in sunlight, that would be great, but something that you could easily mix if you have a PY3 or any other very bright yellow. Queen Gold from Sennelier, nothing too special. Mass tone looks very similar to this one from Daniel Smith and Core. It's in the diluted form that kind of suffers. It's a bit dull, and it lacks that brightness that PY150 gives these other two mixes. I tried to dilute it here even further, but you can, yeah, there's nothing there really. Naples Yellow. I have here the Daniel Smith. I like this one just a little bit more because of that peach undertone, more neutral. Sennelier, it's slightly yellower, but still also beautiful yellow. Cenarius Blue, I told you, to remind me of manganese blue hue, and I have the manganese blue hue from Daniel Smith here. Of course, it doesn't have the texture that Daniel Smith is trying to create here, but in hue very similar. And then the royal blue, I don't have wisteria or lavender, but that's kind of what makes me think of. It's much bluer in real life than the camera picks up. I know cameras have a hard time picking up violets, but these are the colors. Let me pause for 1 second to get the Phthalo Turquoise swatches. Here they are, the Phthalo Turquoise from Daniel Smith and the Phthalo Turquoise PB16. Actually, I have it from Da Vinci and not from Schminke. Definitely the Sennelier one much closer to Daniel Smith, which also it's a mix of PB15 and PG36. I believe there's the same mixture in Sennelier's one, but to get that proportion right, if you want that all the time, grab yourself a tube of this beautiful color. If not, you can mix it yourself and experiment. And then the single pigment Phthalo Turquoise PB16, definitely much bluer. They almost don't seem like a whole different hues, but these are the colors. I might pause and stop this video here and come back with the next part since it's getting quite lengthy. I hope you enjoy it, and I'll see you soon.